It's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. A little bit late roundup this week in terms of the hotness, in terms of the news, but late is actually paid off because a few things have broken, and a few of you guys have already commented in the comment section like, what do I need to know? Hey, did you notice this? Hey, yeah, I did. But let's take a look. As always, check out the stuff from previously in the week. A little bit of Marvel, a little bit of Fractal, a little bit of everything else. So we'll just kind of see what else is out there. As always, I'm going to go over the hotness. I'm going to give you a few of the reasons things are on the hotness, a little explanation of what they are and why. And then I've got a few bullet points as well of the top news from non-hotness of what else has come up. So, as always, let's take a look. Now look, first up is Fractal Beyond the Void. In case you're viewing this right away, you're going to go, okay, why hasn't Chris linked to us? Because I'm actually filming this before the night of the launch, so to give you an idea of things. If you missed it, my video of the 5 things you should know about Fractal, especially compared to some of the other games like Eclipse or Voidfall, up yesterday. I'll put the link in the comments section, maybe below or above, you know, a little bit of both maybe. But Fractal is another take on the 4X genre of explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Wow, I can't believe I did that well. But it's another aspect of this. Now, the big thing I'll say right now is they have, as the title suggests, the Beyond the Void, as you see over here. That is really the campaign aspect of things that those other games don't really have in that sense, where there is going to be expansion of what just the core game offers, expansion of modularity, but also altering how your victory conditions, how you are directed maybe towards winning or not in the future in a positive but also interestingly different way. And now, depending on whether or not you want that, obviously, too. Now, I don't know the price point at the time of me filming this, but that's going to be the big question, especially with how the price point compares to Eclipse 2 and Voidfall, because we've seen where Voidfall falls now, and I have to wonder the direct comparisons just from that side of things as well. So all in all, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely different in terms of the take that, in terms of the combat, in terms of the asymmetry. It's definitely shorter in length to play. There is definitely heavy on the interaction side of things. And it's going to appeal to some of the same people, but I think it's also going to appeal to a lot of the people who are saying, you know what, I like the idea of Voidfall, but at the same time, it's just clearly not for me. So that's going to be an interesting niche to see how well it compares, because we already seen what Voidfall has done of being over or at around $1 million already. So there you go. That's Fractal. Now, next up, clearly very closely related in terms of theme and mechanics, Gutenberg, right? We're going from SpaceX faring to the complete opposite side of history in terms of the printing press, right? So this is more of your worker placement type game. And now the next 3 games up here on the hotness are all, I'm assuming, related to more of the Euro worker placement style of things, because we literally have just passed Gen Con and Origins, and now we're getting into Essen season. So Essen is getting like the leftovers. No, just kidding. Essen is distinctly different in terms of the vibe and in terms of these games than the other two because of their focus on this type of game in the first place. So what do you need to know about Gutenberg then? Well, frankly speaking, there's not a whole lot to know about Gutenberg because there's not a whole lot of information on Board Game Geek. But, I mean, obviously, you are going to be able to try to build the best, most efficient, most fame-gathering, wealth-building printing press that you can over a series of 6 rounds. So, I mean, the theme is there. I can see how you can incorporate it, and the workers. But I mean, as with all of these Euro worker placement style games, how does the incorporation go? And again, what in terms of the mechanisms sets it apart from the others that come out on a monthly, if not yearly basis? And again, I'm not really the best person to evaluate these. You know, really, I like looking back and hearing from other people who have played all of these, who have played all the Feldians and the everything in there, that realm of things, and just can then go, okay, well, this one does a little bit better. And that's why I like listening occasionally to what other people say. Like, I was listening to Alex from Board Game Co. talk about Solar Sphere, you know, and comparing it to other dice placement games, because I haven't played many dice placement games out there. So it was interesting to see, okay, if I like the idea of dice placement, how does this stack up compared to the ones that have stood the test of time? And that's what I always think of when I think of Euro side of things. So this one is no exception to that. But again, different, thematically going to incorporate different elements, and it's going to thematically appeal to different people, and so that's why it's on the Hotness. Now again, if we couldn't have a drastic more 3 different games to start out with in terms of theme, next up is Bitoku, and that again is another completely different theme. Now, again, you'd think I'd actually plan this because this is a said dice worker placement game where you are taking on spirits or yokai to help put them in the right realm, and you have the ability to have these workers that are going to help you achieve that depending on where you put them and how you're following them. You have the ability to have these guardians, which are then going to also expand the options of your workers or of your engine, essentially, as the game progresses. Now, again, as a completely other element, they say that each of your domains, your individual domains, your player domains, are going to be asymmetric. So there's going to be an additional element of playing and options and variety from that side of things. So again, like dice placement are different. And I think that's where you start to see some of these different mechanisms because of the value of the die changing where you can do that. And, I just saw that in Rolling Realms, the Stonemaier game. I'm going to have my review out hopefully later this week of that as well. And so it's interesting to see how that changes the dynamic on a turn-by-turn, game-by-game basis, and I'm assuming that this will be no exception. Next up is Luna Capital, and this one is slightly different, actually. This is more tile placement-esque, and basically the year is 1977, and somehow we have been able to colonize the moon, and so you are setting up these colonies on the moon to be the most successful. Now, there's also a significant common pool, but there's also a significant drafting element where you're going to be pulling cards and trying to match them and trying to layer them out in order to make what they say is the best capital city or the most appealing as the potential capital city of the whole lunar colony. And so this is by Devere Games, and so this is another sort of Essen release, I think, that we're going to see a little bit more of, and I've seen already making a little bit of wave on the social media side of things from several of the other bigger channels, so I would not be surprised if you start to see a little bit of hype on this one as well. Next up on the list is Descent Legends of the Dark, because none of these Hotness roundups would be complete without some sort of introduction or introducing the shut up and sit down effect into them each week. And they had their review of Descent Legends of the Dark, which I didn't watch it, but I don't think, based on the impressions I heard other people talking about, that they were as big a fan of it as NPI was. And so, very interesting. Again, a very splitting game in terms of people that really like it and really like the app integration and akin to the video game side of things, and people that hate it for the exact same reasons. Now, I'm not saying they were, again, didn't watch it, so I can't say, how strongly they felt on other things. But again, it just shows the divide that is still clearly out there with these elements in the board game tabletop scene, but also just dungeon crawlers, for example, in general. So, again, not shocking, but also just another interesting case study on what we see and how it affects things. Look, I've already mentioned Voidfall. I've already talked about it in comparison to Fractal. It is still going very strong. It's still going to be on the Hotness. A couple of you asked in the comment section. I can't back it. I want to back it. I love David Turksey commenting on the Board Game Geek blog post about, that it really does feel like Spirit Islands, to him in terms of the cooperative. But I just can't play it for 4 hours. Spirit Island is a 1.5 hour game, And so if you could promise me that it was going to be that every time and the learning curve was going to be about the same as Spirit Island, I'd be all in. But, even if it was just that one aspect, even if I'd never played solo or competitive, but I just still think it's going to be a 3 to 4 hour slog after people know what they're doing. And I just can't get something like that to the table. So for me, and I've heard a couple of you others say the same thing, like if it's not going to get to the table, no matter how fancy of a showpiece and glorious it would be to have on my shelf, I just can't do it. I have too many other things that are vying for table time that don't get enough table time as it is. And that would be my big fear for this. And for $150, I can get something else or multiple other things that are going to hit the table much sooner. So Voidfall, Mind Clash Games, it's doing bonkers, and we'll just kind of see how it does for the rest of the campaign. So all eyes are going to be on it right now. It's the gold standard until a couple other things come up later this month at least. Speaking of games that are killing it, Beast, hopefully my review will be out in another day or two. And, spoilers again, if you're watching this video, it's going to be positive. I'll tell you that right now. I really like this game. This one versus many hidden movement. I have only one other Japanese hidden movement style game in my collection as a whole. And I think it's doing some unique things. I think it's doing some positive things. I think it does probably not get the recognition that it deserves because it's going up against a lot of other stuff head to head. It's coming from a smaller company. And frankly speaking, it takes two niche elements and sort of combines them together. And I think the sum is greater than those parts in terms of the one versus many as well as the hidden movement. So beasts versus hunters, different spin on things, different mechanisms in terms of things that are incorporated. Thematically, it really appeals. And it's just, they're putting out good product. This is, as I said to one of you guys in the comment section, as I saw someone else put elsewhere, this is the sort of project that I back on Kickstarter, even if you think you could get it less for elsewhere, because this is the sort of project that Kickstarter was designed for in the first place, in theory. And so if you are one of those people that spouts that, this is the sort of thing that it was worth the money and worth pledging for. So that's Beast, Studio Midhall. Check it out if you're interested. So in case you missed it, now we're going to go to the completely other end of things. I've done the hotness, I've done what's there, because there's a couple other retreads, but let's get to the more important, the most breaking news from that side of things. Marvel Dice Throne. Roxley has picked up the Marvel license, and they say, now this is coming to Kickstarter later this month, I think on the 25th they say. So we're going to see it very, very shortly. Of course, after I put out my monthly of everything you need to know. But again, this is crazy, because I'll be honest with you. Dice Throne, it's a fun game, but it's not for everybody. Now, you throw on an IP that everyone can relate to, takes it a notch up, because it's already a solid game. It is. Now, it's, again, like I said, it's not for everybody, but it's a very solid game. It's very well thought of. And they've already commented, even within the several hours after this news breaking, that these are not going to be reskins. This is not like Marvel Splendor, even though I thought about picking that up for my kids, because again, Marvel taking it up a notch, and my 6-year-old is obsessed with Splendor as one of the few games he'll play right now. But they're going to be completely new, and they're going to be thematic, and they're going to do a good job at it. I mean, Roxley puts out very, very solid stuff. So I can't imagine what they have in store. The question is just going to be, honestly, like, are they picking your favorite ones? Are they going with like super mainstream for the first round of things? Because this is just the first round of things. Or are they going to go as big? Now, they're not going to go as big, but as like Simon does. Or are they going to go somewhere in between? Like, maybe you get like 12 characters. I can't imagine they're going to do something as small as like 6. That would be like a core at retail. But I have to imagine that it's going to be something larger. Something like 12-ish. But again, I think you're going to be talking probably $100 price point, because Roxley also puts out more of a premium product in the first place. They just do. And that's okay. You just take it for what it is, especially with the organization and the everything that went along with the previous couple. Again, I say that as a positive. You're going to pay for a premium product, you're going to get a premium product, period. So the only question is, some of the Roxley stuff hasn't always translated to exclusivity. So sometimes there has been a little bit of question, do you get it now or do you wait? And that's okay too. You do get some benefit of getting it now. Sometimes the price point will be cheaper. So anyway, this is probably near now the top of my list of things that are going to be peaked for me on terms of Kickstarter between now and the end of the month. And that's pretty saying something, considering there's some other pretty big hitters between now and then as well. So that's Marvel Dice Throne. And cheap plug, I put out my Marvel guide to the other 3 Marvel games that are out there. That is up as well. If you want to check that out, be interested. I'll put the link in the comments above as well. Next up, in case you missed it, this is one of my other favorite games of the year. And maybe of all time. This is Level 99's Bullet. And if you're not familiar with Bullet, you need to go check it out as a shoot 'em up puzzle action real-time strategy game. The latest expansion, the first expansion, Orange, is now in the process of being delivered because of all the shipping crisis and the shipping mess. It was supposed to be July, but obviously, clearly that's late, but that's okay. But they have also announced, starting on the 5th, that they are taking pre-orders for Bullet Star, the second expansion of the series. And so again, if you're like me, I'm probably going to be pre-ordering this. And if you've watched any of my channel at all, if you are a frequent flyer, frequent visitor, you know that I don't really order stuff at retail. I really don't. I really try and trade heavily for retail stuff and not buy it. But this is one of those few things that I probably would. So it's that high on my recommendation list. I believe they're restocking the Bullet Deluxe soon too. So if you're one of those people that was waiting or trying to get the Deluxeified, which is totally worth it. Again, as someone who does not Deluxeify, totally worth it. They're going to be restocking that soon too. They said in the newsletter in the latest blog update. So if you're interested, check that out as well. Next up, we have news from Plaid Games. One of the other games very, very high on my list overall, but also very high on the list of things I have to play, Summoner Wars, the second edition. So, spoilers. I entered a retweet thing on Plaid Games' Twitter, and I won a copy of Summoner Wars. I've got it sitting upstairs on my counter, so I am super pumped to play it from that side of things. And they just announced that two things. One, the subscription is a little bit delayed, so in case you are doing that, $29 per release. They're just a little bit behind, but you don't get charged until they get things set up. But they just announced the first two expansions that are going to go along with this, the Sky Spear Avians and the Cloaks, which both sound really cool from that side of things. As someone who is very new and very intro to this game, I'm just excited. I just love seeing stuff like this. The asymmetry, the pre-built decks, the tactical nature of moving around in the battlefield. It's my type of game. And so, again, I thought I'd just give a little shout out and just say, if you're interested too, just be aware that this is a product that they are going to support and put a lot of effort behind. And so I'm excited to see what they can do, because all indications by people who have played it already say that despite Summoner Wars 1 being an excellent game, this is taking it a notch up already. So there you go. So the other big thing that I saw recently, and this is sort of a little different, but I'll mention it, is Restoration Games and Mondo Games have all of a sudden sort of combined and sort of reallocated things in order to, I'm assuming, better process and be more efficient on the business side of things. So what that means is they're going to procure and partner in terms of the IPs for co-publication. And some of the issues have been with some of these newer Unmatched packs that were supposed to come out a while ago that have sort of been in hiatus, status quo, unknown, essentially. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Marvel ones. There's just been not a whole lot of information that maybe they're going to still be sometime before the end of the year, maybe Q1. And so this new licensing deal is hopefully going to help speed that along a little bit on both ends of things, for both better and worse. So just thought I'd mention it as news to note in terms of that side of things. The other probably biggest thing that has gotten announced in the last several months, and really time is going to tell what this looks like and how impactful this is the World Series of Board Gaming is going to be starting a series, essentially, a convention in 2022 in Las Vegas. And they're saying this is going to be a yearly thing, and the prize is going to be $25,000. And there's going to be 16 games chosen that are going to be announced by, various other media creators, all of the other big channels and a few lesser known channels to create hype about this. And now they say they're giving $100,000 total, but I think like $25,000 is the main prize. And the other article I read, yeah, here it is. So the question on this is going to be essentially, what does this look like? I mean, you can see the calendar here. You can see the big name channels that are releasing literally as we speak, I believe, what the games are going to be. I mean, that's a list I'd love to be on. Anyway, what is it going to entail? How many people are going to take? I mean, there have to be limited signups. How much is the entry fee going to be? I mean, you have to go to Las Vegas in the first place to even get, being able to participate. And so what is that going to look like? And I guess the other side of things that they said was there are going to be like demos of games that are going to be like announced that are played. So, I mean, there's anticipation that these are going to be essentially more recent games, not like 10, 20 years ago. So what does that mean? What sort of games are you going to allow? Like, what's the player count going to be? Are they going to be uniform player counts? Like, are you going to have to play all these games at 4 players? Are you going to have some 3 and some 5? How would that work? What would be the variability and the fairness there? I mean, poker and those card games are a completely different sort of things. How much randomness is there going to be? How much take that is there going to be? Like, what are those criteria? And there's not really a whole lot of information on this from that side of things, but you can see they're already starting to sell tickets the beginning of next month for something we know next to nothing about right now. So this has the real potential, especially from what we've seen happen with video games, to really go somewhere. But at the same time, who knows? Because how much is it going to be supported? What is it going to look like financially, sponsor-wise? Is it going to grow? It's more like poker than it is video game side of things, in my opinion, even though the prize money is also drastically different between those two. And unlike video games where the skill level is always going to be here, and there's always like, poker, people can come out of nowhere, and win an event. I think something like this could also have that, and that's sometimes the wide appeal of it in the first place. Next up from Osprey Games. Now, again, Osprey Games, you might not know them, but they put out Imperium Classics and Legends, so we've seen some very good things from them recently. This next announcement was just last week, and this is Crescent Moon. Now, this is the other interesting aspect of things, a 4 to 5 player area control asymmetric type game. Now, again, if you're going to, as it says up here, make sure you can see it, 5 wildly different unique factions. If you're going to name them wildly, I want to see wild stuff, right? 10th century Middle East. And so again, thematically different, hopefully mechanically different. So if you're an area control person, I mean, you know area control games are better at the higher player counts regardless, but what is this going to look like? Now, they say this one maybe like summer of 2022, so this is a ways off, but I like the aesthetic. I like the theme. Now, area control I'm not huge on, but, you know, again, I do have a couple. So I'll be interested to see what they can do with this, especially as it gets closer. Speaking of video games recently, let's talk about this. Ubisoft and Funforge have announced that they are going to be putting out a Far Cry board game, again, sometime, quote unquote, in 2022. So what do you need to know? Well, there's nothing to know right now, except the fact that Far Cry is a first-person shooter. And if you're not familiar with that, I mean, first-person shooter is where like you are like in the eyes, in the viewpoint of a person like this, not like standing from behind them and seeing all around the person. You're like literally like at their eye level and you're looking. And so there's not really a whole lot of other board games that do anything in that realm or that sense of things. So how much is that aspect going to be imported? How much is that going to play in the mechanisms? Because Adrenaline is really the only board game that I am familiar with that utilizes similar mechanisms in terms of first-person shooter. And a lot of the other ones have gone more of the dungeon crawl route, like Doom and things like that. So things that you would otherwise sometimes associate with a very similar concept. And I mean, obviously, Far Cry has a big video game following. And again, you've heard me mention this several times, that the forbidden door is slowly being cracked more wide open in terms of the video games and the video game companies seeing this dollar signs in terms of us, essentially. And so it's just going to be more and more prevalent. I mean, this is a whole video and a whole other topic all in of itself, but it's going to be interesting to see what this does. And if this does well, I mean, it's going to, again, bust open that door even further for us to see more and more and more and more and more in the near future. So that's it for this week. All the news, the quick roundup, the quick hotness. Hopefully that's interesting. As always, if there's anything else you're interested in, let me know. Hopefully this was interesting and I peeked on a few things that you were interested in as well. I got nothing else. Check out my stuff like I mentioned in the video. Hopefully Beast is coming out. I got Rift Force coming out. I got Rolling Realms coming out. Hopefully Canopy as well soon. I'm just trying to get some reviews out. I know you guys try to, you know, stay away from those things. Those definitely have the lower viewer counts on my channel overall, but I'm trying to put more of that out there because one, these games are interesting to me and I think they deserve to be talked about. And hopefully that will be a portion of my channel that grows over time. I mean, I'm not putting out a ton of stuff, but more regularity. So anyway, hopefully later this week we'll see at least one of those. The usual roundup, the usual suspects, maybe a little bit briefer of a upcoming Kickstarter since I did the whole month. Maybe just highlight a few of the ones that really have my eye each week. Again, let me know what you think about that. You know, maybe put out my best 5. Here are the 5 I'm most interested in. Here are the other ones too. So something like that. We'll try shaking it up this month and see what happens. You guys will let me know. Comment section as well as view counts will let me know what you like and you don't like. So we'll go from there. As always, though, thank you. Stay classy. Have a great week. I'll see you around.